Ready to find your flow? AFSA's got you covered.
That's right. The hands-on training lab in Richardson, Texas is where you trade PowerPoints for pipe wrenches. Real tools, real systems, and real experience you can actually use.
And if you're ready to test your skills, check out the hands-on NFPA 25 workshops, where you'll inspect, test, and maintain live sprinkler systems and fire pumps. No simulations, no fluff, just pressure, flow, and know-how.
It's the perfect way to get under pressure without cracking under it.
So get fired up and register today at firesprinkler.org. Spots fill faster than a charged branch line.
AFSA, where you don't just learn the code, you live it. Welcome to the K-Factor podcast, where we turn up the heat on all things fire protection. Brought to you by the American Fire Sprinkler Association, this podcast sparks conversations about the latest technology, trends, and tools shaping the industry. Join the AFSA tech team as we fan the flames of innovation in fire safety.
Welcome to the K-Factor podcast, another episode. We're here with Ryan Szirmay. He's CEAT Professional Development Lead Fire Instructor with the Oklahoma State University. Welcome.
Thank you. Great being here.
Yeah, appreciate you coming to the lab and talking through hopefully some future trainings together.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the conversations we had, and going. It seems like we got some good plans in place, and we're going to keep developing those as they go further. Yeah,
it'd be fun. And it's always great to have another Oklahoma State grad in the group.
Absolutely, I like this so much. I went back and got my master's there. I always tell everybody, and I was like, man, I like this so much the first time. I figured I'd try it remotely. Only took me 7 years.
That's the typical year. Well, I mean, NIL deal, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another transfer around.
Yep. Still had eligibility left.
So, what brought you into? Tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you into the position that you're in now.
Okay, so my background, it's not your normal background coming back into the fire protection engineering part of it. I was a firefighter in Stamford, Connecticut for 16 years. Well, really 15.6, rounding it up.
As they say, they're on the job, right?
Yeah, they're on the job. And then I was on the job there for about 15 and a half years. And then I got on the Stillwater Fire Department, and I did the last 2.5 years of my career there. And then that's when the job opened up at OSU, and I kind of thought about it, and I was getting older, but also I wanted to start using my the background for something other than just riding on the tailboard.
That's fun though.
Yeah, and I mean the cool thing is I still stayed up on all the systems. Everybody's like, well, really, how does your background toe into this? Well, I got to see everything while it was breaking. I got to see everything while it was working right. And I got to manipulate a lot of it during that, because before the contractors show up, it was usually the fire department there that was, handling a lot of it. And I was like, hey, call your contractor. You got to fix your system.
I'm sure you have some good ITM stories then as well that can tie in fairly well.
Oh yeah, there's one I opened up a closet and I was like, ooh, nobody's looked at this one in a long time.
Few snakes.
Yeah, well, no snakes, but they were the furry kind.
Oh, fair enough.
I think I even saw some stray cat in there too. I was like, okay, sorry, don't mind me.
So, what does your job at Oklahoma State and CEAT Professional Development look like?
So, my job at Oklahoma State, I really hold two different jobs right now. It's I'm the lab manager. That takes up about, I'd say it's only. The split is supposed to be about 75-25, but the lab is a full time. I mean, you guys see it down here. I mean, there's always something to fix, always something to update. And when I'm not teaching for professional development, I'm doing out. I'm supporting the professors as we deliver our undergraduate programs and doing stuff like that. So usually, if something's breaking, or if something is like, something not working quite right in here, you want to come take a look? Yeah, sure. I get a running list.
It's more like not really, but I will.
Yeah. Well, it's like, hang on, I'm going to put this down. All right. Put that on the back burner. So you kind of have to stay froggy on it.
Yeah. Stay up to date. All the new things coming in too.
Yeah, that's a big thing. That's one thing I tried to do over the years when I saw stuff coming through, especially going to grad school. I was like, okay, this is new. Let's, and just getting all the information, having access to a lot of it, having just getting the access to it and just talking to people in the field and, going from there.
So a lot of people that we run into or that we're training don't even realize that there's furthering education or I guess structured college training? What brought you to even get a master's in this stuff?
So a lot of it, when you're going in, you're seeing how your systems are working. I worked when I first got assigned to two company in the South End. It was mostly abandoned factory buildings, and then a lot of the 3-decker railroad flats that you see a lot in New England.
The triple deckers.
Yep, the triple deckers. We just called them. We had our 3 and 4 story railroad flats there, and then started changing over from that to one of the largest concentrations of high-rise buildings in the whole state of Connecticut. So now we have all these new systems in there, and they're like, oh, there's okay, we got a fire pump here now, and now we got a full-on standpipe system with pressure-reducing valves. All right, everybody, the fire service are always talking about the pressure-reducing valves. How's it going to affect our flow? Guys were going in and looking at them, so I was like, oh, I have some background in this. All right, let me go in and start putting this to use, and talking to the guys about it, and we did a drill in there. And I was all right. First things first, don't touch anything until we tell you. And after we set the fire alarm off in the building, I was like, that is the alarm test valve right there. And we just demonstrated the way to do it, which is cool. I mean, getting the guys in there and having them look at it and be like, all right, this is how these systems are going to work. We were always taught for years, don't trust the systems that are in place. But it's like, no, these ones you can trust. Because these ones, if they're doing their regular in maintenance, these ones were just installed. Like they just opened this place. So if there's a time to trust it, now's the time.
What was there a point in your career where you really realized the importance of hands-on training that led you kind of to the path that you're in now?
My whole career has been hands-on training until about, I'd say, when everybody's trying to do the check-the-box routine to get their ISO rating up. Then they started putting that computer-based training. And we saw immediately things just taking a dive. The first thing I wanted to do it with hazmat. And we were the hazmat in WMD. And we're like, okay, we went from doing the refresher training, now we're doing it online. And then guys were like, people are just clicking. It's not as effective. They're clicking through it, but they're not getting their hands in it.
And nobody has the test files, right, to the answer to those quizzes.
That one got developed.
No, sir?
One got developed pretty quick. And I was like, okay, now they're not even looking for the test. No. And then on top of that, but that's just anywhere. It's
for
just,
sure.
When it's that just cookie cutter training, hands on, it's, you're dealing with the stuff that you see in the field, you're seeing what's new in there. And then when you put your hands on it and actually manipulate it and actually go through and put it into practice, it links up all those concepts into actually what you're going to be doing. Well, and that's been my whole career.
And like some of that online training, it's great because it kind of frees you up to, okay, when you have space and time, you can kind of fit it in, but there's some of that hands-on stuff you just can't replace.
Yeah.
Right? There's something like you said about actually putting your hands on it, doing it, having it click, getting that muscle memory that is important. But I do kind of like the online stuff for, hey, let's go ahead and fit it in where we can if you're busy with, other trainings and trying to find time to fit it in your schedule for a lot of the recurring training for experienced people, right? But there's that hands-on side that I think we still need that, unfortunately, I think we've gotten a little away from.
But I'll play devil's advocate, right? It costs a lot of money to send somebody to Dallas for hands-on training, to Stillwater, Oklahoma for hands-on training.
Yep.
And to your point, in between lunches on the truck, I can get a couple online modules done.
Right.
What's your argument to that?
So the online modules, they're produced to hit a wide audience. All right, a very general audience. They're not, you can't say, okay, now we have these types of, you can't take this one piece that that is specific to a group that they're going to see. Like we had some IT&M folks from New Orleans come in, and we had some of the older risers in our lab. One even has an exhauster on it. And they're like, we haven't seen, a lab with an exhauster. This is awesome. We see these all over New Orleans. Let's go take a look at it. And I was like, okay, there we go. And let's crack it open. Here we go. We're taking it apart right there, and we're going through the whole inspection, test, and maintenance procedure on it. And, it's having that piece of it. And there was a bunch of guys that were experienced in there, and there was a bunch of guys in there that, had just been starting out. And, everybody got to work with the guys who had experience. And like, I haven't seen these in a couple of years, but, I've definitely seen a lot of them. And, they get the refresher, and then the new guys get to feed off of the older guys, and it it's kind of a give and take atmosphere.
Very customizable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even if it's theoretically the same class, it's never the same class twice. You could teach the same ITM class to 2 different groups, and it's going to be a vastly different class because you're going to get into, okay, they're more comfortable with this, they're less comfortable with that.
Exactly.
It tailors it, yeah.
Exactly. And then we teach, we have the ITM portion in our property loss control classes where we have the insurance folks coming in, and their needs are a lot different from the ITM folks that are out there and, they're actually working hands on the system. When now we have people evaluating them. So it's like, okay, here's what NFPA 25 says for this. All right, here's our partial trip test. All right, and here's why it's important. And here's why, here's part of this procedure. Okay, now that we've done it, we're cracking this, we're opening this faceplate off, and we're going in, we're inspecting gasket fittings and our seats, our valve seats.
It's going to smell great.
It's going to smell wonderful. And I tell them right when they crack ours open, I was all right, ours get open a lot. Yeah. Okay, there's ones that never get opened all year long until you're going to see it. So I was like, but just this is what we're going through. So when they say, okay, well, is this adequate? It puts that vision to them, and it goes back to, when that's when I started incorporating back into our program, because we had gotten away from it a little bit, but incorporating the live fire demo with the sprinkler heads, because I had somebody from an insurance company, they came up and say, I've never seen a fire. I've never seen a sprinkler head go off. All right, how does that work? And I was like, can you show that here? And I said, well, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, we can.
Give me about 20 minutes.
But you can.
Yeah. Well, and the demo trailer's been around a long time.
Yeah. So you have so how does this? You got a demo trailer. What does this look like?
So originally, it was meant to be a mobile public education device. It was actually designed by one of our graduates as a senior project, and we're still using it today.
That's awesome.
And it's not nearly as mobile as we used to have it. It's more like we set it up and kind of fixed it in place, but it gives you that look. We're not even putting a huge fire in it. I mean, we're using legacy combustibles because we don't, it's a lot cleaner of a burn,
right?
A lot less chemicals we're releasing into an environment, and but it also gives that it's also scalable. So like, okay, here's the response that sprinkler head just had. Here's how many gallons a minute it's putting out, and then here's the size of fire that we had compared to what we had, to what you're going to have in modern combustibles.
So is it like the other, like a side-by-side trailer, or
it doesn't do the side-by-side with the it doesn't do a side-by-side with, like, I can't do a legacy and modern burn.
Right.
That's something I would love to do in the future.
Yeah.
As we expand our capabilities as the space allows. But at least this gives them something. It has windows on both sides of it, so it can get a whole class around it, and put a 1 3/4 line feeding it.
Nice.
And it doesn't even need that much pressure because you only I think we even have an older head in there where it's a 3.9 K factor.
And curiosity's killing me, and it's the brightest orange in America, I'm guessing.
Believe it or not, no. Oh. It's white, and that's one of the things we need to fix. That's what I tell you. You need a new paint job. Like that's where we're at with it.
So what do you, in your experience, think that you're teaching maybe college students who have never even seen a sprinkler?
Right.
And maybe educational, not necessarily hands-on, all the way to the experience, professional development. Do you notice that the hands-on training is just as effective for both parties?
The hands-on training helps. It can't be too heavy on either end. It's got to be a good mix. You have to take the concepts that you introduce in the classroom and the stuff that they're reading about in the books. You take and especially when you're talking about testing sprinkler heads and different things like that. Like, okay, how old is this head? Well, this head. You can take an older head and say, let's take a look at it. Let's see how it works. But it has to connect the concepts that you were teaching. So I can't just go out and just say, hey, we're just going to light this on fire and that sprinkler head's going to go off. I have to
That'd be cool,
it back. I mean, that'd be cool. I mean, but it's as we relate it back to the material, It's like, okay, what kind of fire can we expect? This is a residential environment. This is a residential trailer. That's what we're looking at here. This is to simulate a residential fire. Now we're going to go in and we're going to talk about, ESFR and, CMSA. We're talking about our large drop heads, different things. We're talking about the, storage applications. What size fire can we expect, and what kind of sprinkler head are we going to need to apply to that? What kind of system? So that's how we tie it in. It's got to be tied in. It's the aha moment.
Right.
You can talk about advanced engineering all day long. I could sit there and talk about, fire behavior, fire dynamics to people, but when they see it, it's that light bulb.
When you get a good rollover, there's nothing better.
Oh yeah.
We're not trying to do that, but
no. I mean, I have
Usually means things have gone wrong.
Yeah, I do help. I did help with that training with fire service training when I was working for them.
You did a lot of hands-on training in the fire service as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's you incorporate it into every class. Even when we're going through our hazmat classes, which is a lot of book work. Sorry, we're doing a lot of stuff with the books, but then it's like, okay, here's our meters. Let's go out, and now we're gonna, here's our equipment. Here's the suits. Here's our transfer pumps. Here's our grounding and bonding kits.
So when we initially talked about potential topic, because we leave it very broad, I thought the second portion of the conversation you brought up was very interesting and very intriguing. So I'm curious. So fire dynamics as it relates to inspection, testing, and maintenance, and system design. So what's your thoughts with that, right? Because, I mean, a lot of people that we're training or associating with a lot of times, like, well, it says it in the standard, right? We should be doing it like that.
Why does it say it in the standard? Yeah. Always go back to the why. Why are we here? Why are we doing this? Okay, why are we worried about, we're going to be replacing gauges, okay, but why is that important versus going and looking at a sprinkler head and making sure, okay, why is it important that it's painted head? Okay, well, how much is it painted? Is it painted a little bit? Is it painted on the deflector? Like, what part of this, and what is it going to do to that spray pattern? And what is that spray pattern going to look like when it's there attacking a fire? And I always say, like, okay, our system's ready to fight fire, because that's what it's doing. That's the first nozzle there. And somebody asked me at the AFSA conference, they were like, you don't hear a lot of, you hear some firefighters that were like, oh, sprinkler's going to put us out of business. I was like, well, those firefighters haven't been to a fatal fire to say that, and when you do go to a fatal fire and, that part, you kind of like, okay, did this really need to happen? First, did we do our job right? That always goes through your head. And then once you work through all that, and however you need to work through it, usually with some help,
for sure,
with a lot of help, from a lot of good people, and then once you work through that, it's like, okay, what could we have done to prevent this loss of life? Because that's what we're all in the business for, preventing loss of life. The property's secondary to that, but life loss, when you see life loss, it's like, it's sad, and you always want to go back and say, how can we prevent this in the future? And it always goes back to some system in place that either tells them to get out, that either that smoke detector goes off, tells them, okay, wakes everybody up so that they're not sleeping, and by the time they wake up, that the smoke's banked down to the floor, and they're already in a potentially toxic atmosphere. And you went back to that. What is one of the big motivators that got me into got me to go back to grad school? And part of that was, part of it was that too. Going to a fatal fire and seeing that happen, and then it's like, all right, smoke detectors. All right, well, hey, let's talk about residential sprinkler systems. We really want to crack this open. Let's look at it. How much does it add to the overall cost of building? Per square foot. I mean, obviously that's going to change in your region, and by the material costs going up and down. But some states were pushing it, and New York State got some of it through. With third story occupancy, residential occupancies with an occupiable third story. That third story had to be sprinklered, but the rest of the building didn't.
Yeah, and your balloon construction.
Yeah, well, that's the new construction. Well,
Yeah.
but that was the thing. Sometimes they were renovating a balloon construction house, and if they were renovating it, and there was a number in there, don't quote me on it. I mean, I don't think we have access to New York State Fire Code, do we?
Maybe
We'll see. But yeah,
but go ahead.
no, that in that perspective, that I think that I forget when I'm training people too is come from a fire service background. Is some people haven't seen the other side.
Yeah.
Which once you do, it never really leaves you.
No, absolutely. And you see it work, and you see it not work, and you see it when it's not there.
Right.
And knowing that, you see one of the earliest ones was when I saw a kitchen hood go off, and kitchen hood went off and actually kept the fire to the area of origin.
Wow.
And I was like, well, that's it wasn't really designed. I mean, it wasn't designed for the feet. It wasn't a grease fire that it was fighting, but it was a towel that caught fire, and it caught like a lot of this other stuff on the stove that on fire, and they had a few towels sitting on top of the pot. I don't know why, but kept it there. And
and I think that's one thing too when you start to look into furthering your education, as a fire nerd.
Yeah,
I like to see the loss report.
Mm-hmm.
Because you learn so much to your dynamics point, right?
Yeah.
How can we solve this? Or
right.
And so how do you get involved with fire dynamics in ITM?
So when I going back to that point when in grad school when we were looking at the evacuation, you're doing your evacuation design, and you build your fire model.
That was fun.
You're right. And then the thing that got me with that was, okay, what is incapacitation? Okay, it's 30% carboxyhemoglobin level. That's what we're looking at for an incapacitation rate. Okay, now we have something to work with here. It's like, okay, how long does it take to get to this rate? And now UL took it even further, and they went from, okay, here's the concentration at the ceiling, here's the concentration at the 3-foot level, here's the concentration at the 1-foot level. I mean, they did different levels and going through all that. Okay, here's where they're going to be sleeping in a bed. All right, here's where they're going to be walking, and here's the breathing rate per minute. How many liters per minute, the tidal volume are they moving of air, and just getting that deep into it. Now with an ITM, the biggest thing is I take it back. I don't get that deep into it in that regard, except when it comes to, okay, how big is the fire we can expect for the occupancy? Okay, is the system in place adequate for that? Because then it goes back to one thing I did not mention was when I was an undergrad, I did my internship at the Stillwater Fire Department in the fire marshal's office, and at that time they were having us do the plan review, and they were having us do the 50% inspections and the final acceptance tests.
It's a good gig.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. They don't do the plan review there as now they have. I mean, not in the fire department anymore. They took it and put it in the building department. But one of the things that they did that taught me, and then I was also doing the inspections too. I had a full plate. It was awesome. I mean, it was great to just be given that kind of, and I was pretty far along in the program too. But and they didn't just cut you loose and go. I mean, the fire marshal Trenton Wilkins at the time, he was and the deputy fire marshal was Chuck and I at that time, and they were, they kept an eye on us, and but they were like, all right, once they had a beat on what our competence level was, they were like, all right, they gave us the assignments and went there, and one of them was there was a factory in town and they had a storage area. The factory's not there anymore. But so I can talk about this without making anybody too mad, I think.
Too uncomfortable.
Yeah, but
wait, that's my factory.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But at that time we would get the fax when the system got yellow tagged. So we get the fax. I pull up,
like FAX fax.
Yeah, FAX fax, like
like beep,
phone
beep,
rings,
beep.
First, comes out, prints it out, and you're like, okay, cool. We got a telegram here. What's this? So I pulled that out, and it was. Okay, the system got yellow tagged, so the system works, but it's not, the hazard doesn't match. Okay, well, what's this? All right, let's go take, and I was like, I'll call the guy. You want me to chase this down? They're like, yeah, call and make an appointment. Well, we were getting kind of ghosted on this. They were like, we'll call you back. They didn't call us back. So then the deputy fire marshal.
That's easy, just non-hazardous, right? You move on?
Yeah, no. He was like, you know what? he's like, they should at least like call you back. All right. Let's, he tried calling him. He's like, they're ghosting me too. Let's go right to enter. So I was like, oh, okay. We're just gonna walk in there. All right. Yeah. So, I guess he wasn't happy about them not answering the phone. So, we went in there, and it turned out that it was originally designed to store engine blocks, and they were storing high pile pallets. They were plastic pallets. So they went from a metal engine blocks on wood pallets to just plastic.
Not magnesium engine blocks.
No,
metal.
Back then, no, I think they were just metal on those. Yeah, it wasn't back. That was like 2005, 2006. So,
okay.
Only the Volkswagens were running the magnesium engines back then. But no, then we get in there. I was like, well, do you expect? And talking to them, they were like, well, FM took a look at all our stuff. I was like, well, and having to explain to the people there, okay, no, you have changed your fire load now. You have changed the type of fire that your system is going to be fighting, and it's not putting out enough water. It's not going to be putting out enough GPM. It's not going to be absorbing the kilowatt energy to do that. So rolling that. So it was then that I realized, okay, well, fire dynamics really plays a high part in this, because it goes back to all of our commodity classifications, all of our hazard classifications. It's, and we see that now with the parking garages when they, upgraded those. Now they're all ordinary Group 2 hazard now, and then with the car.
It may change.
Right. And that may change even more with the, with lithium ion batteries. So, but just being able to see what kind of fire we expect is, okay, is this system going to work the way it needs to work for our customer?
Well, and I know coming out of insurance, that was not an uncommon situation for us to run into. But, it was when I was with the insurance company, I was like, I don't understand why we keep running into this issue. Like, why are we the ones that get to be the bad guy and roll in here and have to call it out? But then it's like, well, you start diving into the scope of 25, and it's like, okay, technically that's outside of scope. Like, they're looking at, okay, what is it? How is it installed? We're not looking for design and install issues, right? Like, that's a comment to make on your report, but you can't write it as a true deficiency, but you should be letting the owner know. But it's like, okay, if your hands are tied, the fire marshal might be coming in, but if they're not doing a full dive into commodity classifications, things like that, and they're just, oh, yep, there's a green tag from the contractor, we're good to go. And then the building owner thinks, oh, yeah, things are great. And then the insurance guys roll in, and they're like, oh, nope, your whole building's burned to the ground. Sorry to burst your bubble.
Yeah.
Right? But it was stuff like that where it's, oh, yeah, it was designed to some kind of metal widget at some point, and now we're into plastic, and the whole commodity class has changed. But having those conversations was always interesting, because it was part of some of that was that education of, okay, yeah, this is going to burn different, right?
Absolutely. And actually, my predecessor, Floyd Lindstrom, he used to use the example of the Ford Motor Company plant in Germany, and when it was built post World War II, and then had great fire protection, and then in the 70s it burns to the ground. Well, it's because they changed the plastics, and it's like, okay, well, he made that point at the beginning of every class, and I was like, okay, this is tying it back to fire dynamics again,
right?
And it's like, okay, and there's always that point of like, well, I thought this, okay, well, the IT&M guys are always like, well, again, you mentioned it there. It's not our job to talk about the adequacy of the system design, but is it going to adequately protect that property? This is one of those gray areas.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, you still need to let your customer know, like, okay, you have a working sprinkler system. It's just not the sprinkler system you need.
Yeah, supplemental report to start to explain things like that. The hazard analysis might need to be deeper dive. So how do you balance that, right? Because when we have loss prevention classes, easy conversation to have with an insurance representative, right?
Oh, yeah, the ultimate age, Jay.
Yeah. We don't care what standard you're on. We're going to do the greatest.
We're not paying you.
Scope and purpose? What scope and purpose?
That's the same with AHJs. It's kind of an easy conversation to have. Mm-hmm. How do you bring a new contractor in and have that discussion? Because sometimes it's too much.
Well, you kind of keep it pretty broad at first. It's like just down to what's burning and how big is that fire going to be. it doesn't have to go as deep. Like we're doing the calculations. We're going to calculate view factors for the radiative heat transfer. You know, like
Ryan said that's the best way to do. We got to teach that in our classes.
No. You do that. There's some people are going to be like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, why am I here?
Is it a fire in a corner? Is it
right? Exactly. But it's basic. It's not like we're not getting super deep into it. And if you wanted to get deeper into it, absolutely, we can make a whole nother week-long class out of it. Just on the part of hazard analysis, hazard assessment, and it all goes back to, just understanding how fire is burning, what's burning, and how's it going to burn. Goes back. It's every level of our industry, from engineering to right down to the basic firefighter pulling a line into the building. Understanding whether or not the line that they're taking with them, is it going to do the job or is it not? Are they going to get chased out of the room, or are they going to chase out of the building, or are they going to be able to knock the fire out?
Well, I think the big thing there is just advocate for good fire protection first,
yes,
and then worry about the details. After that, but as long as we're advocating for good fire protection off the get-go, how we get there, okay, maybe we need to make some comments, do some education, bring in some other people to make it all work. But I think at the end of the day, everybody's first goal should be, okay, let's advocate for good fire protection, good life safety, and we'll figure out the rest.
Absolutely.
Until the lawyers get involved, and then
we don't need to start that discussion here.
Lawyers and the bean counters. And it's but you hit it there. You're advocating for good fire protection. Fire protection, not just, and we say that in this setting, and we're a lot of people automatically think we're talking about the sprinkler head. The sprinkler system in there, the standpipe systems. It goes beyond that. It goes to good building construction. Passive systems in there. It goes to how your community planning is, how big, your street planning. We saw this in the field study project we did in South Africa, in the informal settlements, just because they were building the shacks in just random places. And they had you could barely pass some of the cars we had through there, let alone fire apparatus when they caught fire. So now, people were getting, people burned and, people got killed in those fires because they just, they didn't even know they were burning, or they were sleeping and they didn't have a smoke detector in place. Just something just so simple as that is, okay, what is the fire? Like, again, what kind of fire is burning? What fuel is burning, and what kind of, how is that fire going to behave? How is it going to react? Where is it going?
So that the fire dynamics too, I think it brings up a point is data driven changes, right? Like we always want to. I wouldn't say want to. Of course, it seems like we want to with the amount of inputs we put, right? But we want to make sure that the standard itself is the best that it is. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of public inputs placed, and you'll hear a lot of times the committees say, like, just don't have the data to change that. No,
and that's it. And I asked this at your conference, at the FSA 43 conference, when I was sitting in the seeing what the NFPA Fire Protection Research Foundation was doing with with their lithium ion battery research, and asking, and it's like, I was like, how come, I was asking why they picked a certain K factor of a head. What drove you to that decision? And they're like, we have only enough to burn this many times. We only have enough to do this test fire this time, and then the next time we have to. So they're like, it's not. We're kind of financially kind of hamstrung.
It's expensive.
And it's expensive to do fire testing,
and
at every level.
I won't pick the specific car, but a brand new electric vehicle. Let's go ahead and light a few of them on fire.
Yeah,
that's
Reliable did that, didn't they?
Yeah,
with their tunnel head. We were just talking about that one earlier. The
touchdown head, right? So the data's coming. So are you, as a university, is there any research happening or anything? Not to dive into it, right? Because it's
no. There is research happening, and it's at that point. It's not. There's also demands at different times,
right?
Right now you're seeing a lot of the wildland-urban interface, especially now. You're going to see it just as much now as you have been in the past, because it's probably one of our greatest fire problems right now. Yeah. You see the biggest loss property, and think about the insurance industry. Where is their biggest property loss due to fire? Even before this incident happened, now it was in the wildland-urban interface area.
Well, that's the interesting discussion, and I guess I'll be one to bring it up. It seems to be because there's very deep problems with a lot of stuff going on here. But you'll hear a lot of times on the news stations, hey, their hydrant stopped working.
Yeah.
And to me personally, does it surprise me with experience? Not really. It's not, that infrastructure is not designed to put out that much water for that many houses and properties on fire.
We talk about our fire flows,
right?
What's a fire? We do our fire flow calculation, and we're doing it for that building, that house, and based on how much the consumption is for the area, and if your area has exploded in population, and your infrastructure can't keep up with that sometimes.
Yeah. And to try to produce the infrastructure is not necessarily the most cost. You need a huge water line.
Oh my, yeah. Absolutely. Water line, and what's feeding that line.
Right.
If your reservoirs are dry, what else and you don't have the water to draw in, where are you going to get it from? I mean, you can't pipe it in from the ocean.
Yeah.
Salt water and pipes, that's going to be great.
Yeah.
But is it a possible? So, you saw the helicopters and the planes drawing out of the water, taking water out of the ocean. Where do you get the water?
Yeah.
Or you can have the best pipe system in the world. What's feeding it?
And there's that one's just, that's why I didn't want to necessarily dive to it. There's so many.
Yeah.
You're back burning and maintenance.
Yep.
But so what kind of research goes on?
So at the university now, they were doing some soil research testing. They were basically burning soil.
Okay.
And that's an ongoing project.
Dirt burns. Learn something new every day.
Yeah. Or at least not necessarily what's the heat doing to it.
Okay.
And then what's going on, what's the water penetration going to be thereafter? Those types of things. And there's even more that's going on that I haven't even gotten a good look at yet.
Yeah.
There was another one they were doing burning on textiles, just for fireproof clothing, not fireproof obviously, but what are they?
Fire resistant.
Fire resistant. The FR clothing. Yeah. Fire resistant.
So, and then I think that's one thing I guess to point out that I don't think everyone notices, right? Is that you can make changes with the data y'all are doing. What else happens with that data? Does it just go into the abyss?
It gets published. Hopefully, it gets published in a journal, and a bunch of people read it. And decision makers, use it when they have, when they're like, oh, hey, and they have a question. It's like, all right, well, let's go see, is there research done on this?
Just super important.
Yeah. Right now, anytime I'm asking a question, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to type it in. I'm going to say, who's done research on this?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the NFPA research, NFPA Research Foundation. I'm going to be looking at I'm going to be looking at UL. I'm going to see, okay, those are the first two places I look.
Yeah.
And then I dive into our library database and say, okay, who has done some study on this? And
if it's not OSU, I guess EKU, Worcester Polytech, Maryland,
and
go right down the list.
There's other ones. There's ones internationally.
Yeah, for sure.
You see stuff internationally. When one of the big things with the informal settlement research in South Africa, that was University of Edinburgh and University of Stellenbosch that set up those burns, and we were there kind of witnessing, and cut a couple boards for them.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, let me cut a couple boards for you. Here we go. I got bored watching. But other than that, it was there's research going on about all different stuff all the time, and just where do you find it? Can you get access to it? Luckily, going through OSU, we had that whole library database.
For sure.
They subscribe to all different things. So a lot of it's not open source though.
Right.
You see, okay, that research was done. Okay. But now in order to pull it up, I either have to subscribe to something.
Extra $150.
Or you have to go to somebody in your organization. Hey, can we get a copy of this somehow, some way?
So how do you see, to kind of, I guess, tie this up and try to, what challenges do you see inspectors face, and how can we as hands-on trainers approach and attack that challenge?
So
loaded question. Very easy one to end on.
Absolutely.
There, Josh.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good job. Yeah, no pressure. Let's just,
we can do an easier one while you think about it.
Let's test your professional metal right here. No, but here's the biggest thing. What is going to mostly affect the performance of that system? What has the biggest effects on that system? What, those types of things, we can foresee that is a bad valve.
Closed control valve that we see over and over.
is that valve even open? Does the valve work? Once you get, is that system actually functioning? Okay, now that we get up to that valve body, to the sprinkler valve itself, is it a dry system? Okay, is it a dry system that has been charged and now it's, the pipe's frozen in there and you can't discharge an ice cube out of a sprinkler head, unless it's a pretty large head, and
the heat,
good luck.
The heat absorption properties of ice are amazing though.
Yeah, sure. It's just got to chop. You got to have the little gremlin up there with the ice pick. But just the biggest things I see is getting them, identifying the biggest things that are going to cause those systems to not work, and teaching them to at least spot those.
Concentrate on those.
Concentrating on those, and a bad gauge on a system is that again, this is something I picked up from my predecessor. Like, he would sit there and say, "Is a bad gauge going to make that sprinkler system not work?" No.
Yeah.
So why are we concentrating so much on gauges? And that's, if you're getting, I was like, okay, well, and I take it, unfortunately, a lot of this is money driven.
For sure.
Right? You go to your customer and you say, you need a new fire pump. And they're like, you just see the alarm bells go off.
Yeah,
and,
we'll do that next week.
Yeah.
No,
they're like, how long can we use the one we have? And stuff like that. But, identifying what the priorities are. They got to know how to prioritize. And that's kind of what, that's kind of one of the things we kind of help them out with. It's like, well, they have, if somebody has like 100 gauges on their system, if it's a high rise, and they're like, "Ooh, there's gauges on every floor, and then there's gauges along, on each riser for each system," and they're like, "Okay, that's a lot of gauges." So, how is that more important than making sure there's no obstructions in your pipe? Is that more important than, okay, well, our fire pump isn't as performing as well. Like, what can we do to make this better? And we can open up that whole nother can of worms with the fire pump performance,
Right.
And I get that question. I don't know if you guys get this question.
For sure.
When is a fire pump no good anymore? Yeah. And it's always like, well, is it supplying the system adequately?
Is it doing its job?
Is it is it delivering water delivering water at the pressure and the flow that you need it at?
And 100% is always there, but to me, it's always, is it meeting the sprinkler demand? Because ultimately, that's why it's there.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And we introduced that as the fourth test point.
Yeah.
There's a fourth test point. They're like, well, NFPA 25 says there's 3 test points. Well, here's the fourth test point. Yeah. And actually, does it even say in there? Eric might even say it in there.
And that's yeah. You got to think about why is this here for sure. So while he's pulling this up, another softball question.
Yeah.
If you were a type of sprinkler, what would you? we got some air, right?
I've got this one.
What kind of sprinkler would you be and why?
Man, I gotta say, I'd be the reliable tunnel nozzle.
Oh, so you're going down because it's always a touchdown?
I'd be the touchdown head, man. That's it? I mean, that thing's got that 33K factor.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Yeah. High flow. You take a lot of pressure.
Yep. It takes a lot of pressure. It puts early water on the fire.
Okay. Fair enough. I wasn't ready for that one.
All right, so I've got it pulled up. It looks like they've reworded this section. I don't think they've really made changes to it, but we reworded it and we moved it around a little bit. But yeah, it does call out the being able to supply that most demanding system, basically making sure that the system is being supplied or able to be supplied. And I think that, as you mentioned, is kind of that should be the biggest thing we're concerned about.
Yep.
I like it as paren 1.
95% of the curve, sure, that's important to make sure it's functioning
it looks pretty.
Right. But if it's more than 95, I mean, if we've degraded 6%. Okay, if we're still meeting the systems, we'll go do some maintenance on it. We'll maybe
repack it,
whatever the case is.
Yep.
But I'm happy as long as it's meeting the systems, and that's stuff we can work on. If we're not meeting system, though, that's a problem.
That's huge. That's huge.
Well, and then a lot of it, kind of to your point, is not only helping them prioritize what's important, but then giving them the education so that they can almost train the trainer, right? So they can go and educate their customers on, I'm not coming in here asking you to spend a bunch of money just because I can.
Right.
I'm asking you to spend this money. This is why it's important. This is how it's going to affect your building.
Yep.
Because that's one of the other big things is I feel like they need to understand so that that education can continue, because half the time when you walk into a building, you go, I need to see your sprinklers. You mean the ones in the yard? No, the ones in your ceiling. Yeah, and then, you go back to that Simon Sinek book. Yeah, you guys ever hear of Simon Sinek? He's an author out there. He talks a lot about leadership and stuff like that. But one of the things is start with why. How do you communicate the need for something to people? Okay, well, why are we doing this? And that's what I'm taking that lesson. I always take it back to that when we're doing ITM. Why do we need to worry about this section of NFPA 25? Why is this important to us? Why is it important to our customers? Why is it important to the people that are going to be protected by this system or the property?
And it's not just a paycheck.
It's not just a paycheck.
We're a lot deeper.
We have a huge responsibility. It goes to the life loss and to property loss and to environmental, we always had that third part of it, the environment, limit our impact on the environment, especially when it comes to, the chemical industries and stuff like that. Fire and that, well, you see that big black cloud of smoke, that means, black smoke is fuel.
Right. Or orange smoke from, it wasn't that long ago that chemical plant caught on fire and it was nice bright orange smoke. And it was like, well, that's worse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So before we finish this up, is there anything you'd like to let our contractors know, or kind of final words?
Well, we're going to be come to our training. I mean, for sure. There's a lot of training out there. There's training at OSU. There's training here at AFSA. Take advantage of it. Learn from that. Learn from your experiences, but also go out there and make sure that you're addressing everything as you do it. So there's always something to learn, whether you've got 20 years in the industry or 1 year in the industry. If you are not continuing to learn, you're not doing your job. Time
to hang it up.
Yep, time to hang it up.
Well, I really appreciate it, Ryan, stopping in here and talking with you.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was awesome.
No problem. This has been the Cape Factor Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share wherever you tune in to podcasts. Or head over to our website for more. Reach out to us anytime at technical@firesprinkler.org. Stay safe and always learn as we keep the fire protection conversation going.